When people talk about space being the final frontier, I always laugh, because clearly they haven't looked down. The deep ocean is right here beneath our feet, quietly sitting at 36,000 feet deep like it's no big deal, and we've explored maybe 5% of it. That's a reminder we're not built for what lives down there. And here's the fun part. For as long as humans have been reckless enough to get on boats, sailors have reported seeing things in the water that absolutely should not exist. Enormous shapes pacing their ships at night, tentacles thick as masts, shadows rising from calm seas, and creatures so strange they refused to write them in their logs because they genuinely thought the ocean would take revenge. What's really interesting is how these stories line up. Cultures separated by oceans, people who never met, describe the same movements, the same silhouettes, the same terrifying moments where something massive brushed the underside of their ship. Folklore didn't appear out of nowhere. It came from someone seeing something they couldn't explain and surviving just long enough to tell the tale. Tonight, we're descending into 10 of the eeriest sea monsters sailors swore were real. And before you say, well, that's just mythology, remember, we find new ocean species constantly. The deep sea is basically a haunted basement we refuse to clean out. There is no reason, none, that some of these creatures couldn't exist down there, patiently waiting for us to stop pretending we're alone. So grab a lantern, hold onto the railing, and whatever you do, don't look over the side. Something might be looking back. If we're going to talk about deep water creatures that might actually be real, we have to start in the chilly, fog-drenched waters of the Pacific Northwest. This is where sailors, fishermen, and even marine biologists have reported seeing a creature they call Cadborosaurus, or Caddy, if you want to give your nightmares a nickname. Descriptions of this thing are surprisingly consistent. A long serpent-like body, a horse-shaped head, flippers along the spine, and it moved with that unsettling grace the sea saves for things we're not meant to see clearly. Reports date back to the early 1900s, but First Nations stories about a similar creature stretch much farther, describing something huge, fast, and very much alive in these cold passages. One of the most famous encounters came in 1937, when whalers near Naden Harbour claimed they found a strange, serpent-like creature inside the stomach of a sperm whale. They allegedly photographed it, a long, eel-like body, large eyes, a head that didn't match any known species. The photos, of course, disappeared into the ether because the universe loves being dramatic, but multiple witnesses swore it was real. Enough so that even newspapers published sketches of the thing. Could Cadborosaurus be a real undiscovered marine animal? Honestly, it's not far-fetched. We know giant oarfish exist, and they already look like mythological drawings come to life. We know basking sharks can decompose into terrifying serpent shapes, and the Pacific Northwest is full of deep channels, icy inlets, and underwater canyons that barely anyone has explored. If something long, fast, and ancient wanted to avoid us, this would be the perfect place. And the thing about caddy sightings is that they don't feel like tall tales. They feel like people trying very hard to describe something they weren't prepared to see. The same tone sailors use when they're not sure whether they survived something or imagined it. And Cadborosaurus isn't the only creature haunting cold waters. Far across the Atlantic, another long-necked shadow rises just enough to make witnesses question their sanity, and then disappears before anyone can follow. Now we sail to the jagged coast of Cornwall, England. In the waters of Falmouth Bay, people whisper about Morgaw, literally sea giant, in Cornish. The first modern reports came in the 1970s, but the creature feels older than that. One evening in 1975, two witnesses watched a long, dark neck rise from the water, bristled down the spine, horn-like stumps above the swell, and a conger eel dangling from its mouth before it slipped back under. Soon after, a woman known only as Mary F. sent the local paper photos of a dark creature, a small head on a long neck, 3 humps trailing behind, 15 to 18 feet visible above the surface. she wrote. It looked like an elephant waving its trunk. The humps moved in a funny way. The animal frightened me. Most sea serpent sightings get written off as misidentified animals, but Morgaw's details repeat across witnesses. Humps, long neck, dark skin, strange rolling movement. Falmouth Bay is one of the deepest natural harbors in Western Europe. Plenty of room for a serpent-sized secret. Could it be real? Sure. Oarfish rise vertically and look like serpents scanning the surface. Massive eels moving together create the illusion of humps. Low light warps distance and shape. Even debris caught in currents can look alive. But in Cornwall, Morgaw isn't a tall tale. People talk about it softly, like they're remembering something they wish they hadn't seen. Next up, we head to the cold northern waters off Hokkaido, Japan, foggy bays where the horizon just eats the sky. Here, the Ainu people tell of Akarokamui, a titanic red octopus-like being whose name essentially means the one with terrifyingly long tentacles, which is a name that is 100% honest. Some stories claim its full spread covered more than a hectare of water, about the size of a football field. Imagine looking down and realizing the red algae beneath you is actually alive and moving. Witnesses describe it as crimson, almost glowing. In one account, it swallowed small boats whole and released a poisonous, foul-smelling fluid that killed survivors. Honestly, that feels exactly like something the ocean would do just to maintain dominance. But the line between folklore and reality blurs here. Giant squids exist. Colossal deep-sea octopuses exist. Uchiura Bay is deep, shadowy, and full of weird currents. Perfect territory for something enormous and shy. What really seals the creepiness is the consistency. Fishermen separated by generations describe the same slow-moving shadow, the same red arms, the same moment when the sea seemed to change temperature around them. And if the water beneath your boat ever glows red at dusk, don't lean over to check. According to Ainu lore, Akarokamui doesn't hunt out of hunger. It hunts out of opportunity. Now for something warmer, but not safer. Welcome to the Bahamas and its famous blue holes, underwater pits so dark they look like the ocean erased itself. Folklore says one of these pits hides the Luca, a mix between shark and octopus lurking in the underwater caves beneath Andros Island. These cave systems stretch for miles, are pitch black, and have currents strong enough to drag experienced divers downward with no warning. Stories describe Luca as over 75 feet long, with a shark-like head and tentacles that strike from below. Fishermen swear the water grabs people. And when the water starts acting like it has hands, that's when I'm done swimming. Could the Luca be real? Absolutely. Giant octopuses and deep water sharks already exist. Blue holes distort size and shape, making animals appear monstrous, and the vertical currents can make the water feel alive. Plenty of old reports mention boats that vanished with no storm, no debris, no trace. In a place full of tunnels and pressure shifts, that's possible, but it also feels strangely personal. So if the water darkens beneath you over a blue hole, maybe don't linger. Folklore says Luca doesn't chase, it waits. If the ocean has ghosts, they live off the coast of Japan. Sailors feared storms and shipwrecks, sure, but nothing chilled them like Umi-Bozu, a towering shadow that rises from flat, calm water with a round, featureless head and long, ink-dark limbs. The name means sea monk, but there's nothing peaceful about it. Every account says the same thing. When the Umi-Bozu appears, the sea goes dead quiet. Even the air feels wrong. One Edo period tale describes a crew who knew the legend. The Umi-Bozu demands a bucket. If you hand over a normal one, it scoops water onto your deck until you sink. The crew tricked it by giving a bucket with no bottom. When water poured through it, the spirit thrashed in confusion, and they escaped. What could cause such sightings? Whales breaching silently, maybe rogue waves bulging upward like something rising, or perhaps it could be deep-sea animals surfacing when injured, moving strangely in the dark. And then there's the spiritual angle. For centuries, Umi-Bozu was said to be the restless spirits of drowned sailors. In a place where the sea claims countless lives, that interpretation hits harder than you'd expect. And it's said that when the sea goes quiet all at once, that's the moment to be afraid. Not when you see something, but when the water behaves like it's holding a breath that isn't yours. Now we head north, far north, into the Arctic's vast, echoing quiet. The Inuit tell many stories about the sea, but one of the most unsettling is Kalupilik, a green, long-limbed figure lurking beneath the ice, waiting for anyone who wanders too close to the edge. She's described with mottled skin, drifting hair, and an amauti, the traditional Inuit parka used to carry children. That alone tells you her intentions. Kalupilik didn't hunt animals, she took people. Some stories describe hearing a faint humming or tapping beneath the ice, pulling the curious toward thin patches. Other tales say she dragged victims into underwater caverns, dark air pocket mazes where echoes distort and time disappears. But the real Arctic doesn't need magic to be terrifying. Seals surfacing in melt holes can look unsettlingly human-shaped. Underwater currents make loose ice plates knock and vibrate. Light bends strangely under layers of snow. Pressure ridges open without warning. And the ice doesn't crack dramatically, it just gives. A leg disappears, a splash, a shadow moves under the surface. Folklore didn't need to stretch far to explain that horror. Whether Kalupilik is creature, spirit, or cautionary tale, the message is the same. The Arctic doesn't need monsters to be deadly, but sometimes the stories help you survive. But if the Arctic teaches you to fear what's beneath your feet, Antarctica teaches you to fear what's beneath everything. Down there, the ocean turns pitch black, the silence feels alive, and that's where stories of the Ningen begin. A pale, human-shaped giant drifting just under the ice. This isn't ancient folklore. Reports started in the early 2000s from Japanese research vessels. Crews described enormous white shapes, smooth, featureless, disturbingly human-like. Some said they saw arm-like limbs. Others swore they saw a face. One witness said it filled the entire width of their spotlight. Whether or not any secrecy was involved, the story spread, and the Ningen became the internet's favorite deep-sea enigma. But the descriptions aren't impossible. Beluga whales already look creepily human in certain lighting. Rays can appear white and vaguely humanoid when they curve upward, and deep-sea gigantism is real. Animals grow larger in cold, high-pressure environments. Antarctica's waters also distort everything. Rising thermoclines, floating ice sheets, shadows gliding underneath in eerie silence. A whale lifting its back might look like a torso. Ice fragments look like limbs. Darkness does the rest. Still, every Ningen story ends the same way. The creature was silent and watching. And in the frozen dark of an Antarctic night, that silence feels alive. Now we cross into the wild grey waters off Scotland, where wind and sea seem to argue constantly. Here lurks the Kirinrron, the great sea monster, said to be large enough to eat 7 whales at a time. Old folklore claimed it could disguise itself as a small silver fish. A fisherman might reel it in, thinking he'd caught dinner, until it transformed back into its true size. Whether that was metaphor or warning, it tells you exactly how people saw the sea. Unpredictable, deceptive, hungry. Could anything real inspire this? Scottish waters are deep, cold, and understudied. Large cephalopods and serpentine animals roam unseen. Deep-sea predators often use camouflage or rapid shapeshifts. A strange fish by lantern light could absolutely become a monster in memory. And the eerie part? Stories say fishermen sometimes caught small fish that didn't look quite right. Fish that slipped from nets, vanished, and left the sea strangely still. Sometimes what gets away wasn't meant to be caught. And in older maritime tales, the stakes were even higher. Instead of just losing a fish, Some sailors lost an entire ship to a creature the size of an island. Let me introduce you to the Aspidochelone. The story goes, a ship, exhausted from days at sea, anchors near a small island. The crew lights a fire, cooks a meal, and the island moves slowly, then violently. The land plunges beneath the sea, taking the crew with it. Versions of this story appear everywhere: Middle Eastern texts, Greek tales, Norse sagas, medieval bestiaries. That kind of consistency doesn't happen without real confusion on the water. Whales can float motionless at the surface and look shockingly land-like in fog. Rafts of pumice from underwater volcanic activity can appear solid until they suddenly sink. Dense seaweed mats can mimic ground until a current shifts. And if you lit a fire on a whale's back, it'd dive, fast. The ocean doesn't need to be dramatic to be deadly. Whether Aspidochelone is a monster, metaphor, or misidentification, the lesson is the same. On the open sea, nothing stays still. And once sailors wrapped their heads around that, they made the only logical leap. If one creature could be mistaken for an island, what else was out there? And in every corner of the world, that's where the same ancient name surfaces, Leviathan. Yes, it appears in the Bible and other ancient texts as a monstrous sea serpent no weapon could harm, but nearly every maritime tradition has its own version. Think of it as a label humans use when the sea shows them something too big to comprehend. Down in the Hadal zone, places sunlight has never touched, creatures glow, stretch, distort, and grow in ways that break the rules. And those are just the ones we've found. Imagine standing on a wooden ship centuries ago, the water black and silent, and something enormous brushes the hull, not attacking, just reminding you how small you are. Sailors described wakes forming from nowhere, shadows keeping pace beneath them, the sound of breathing rising from the deep. Leviathan is more than just a creature. It's scale. It's the moment sailors realized the ocean wasn't empty, it was occupied. And maybe that's why the legend persists. Because some part of us knows there are things in the deep we're not meant to see, and things in the deep that prefer it that way. The deeper we go, the clearer it becomes that the ocean doesn't need jump scares or fantasy monsters to be terrifying. It's already a world built for pressure, silence, and darkness, a place where life evolves in ways that make no sense to us. Every creature tonight might be folklore, or it might be someone trying to describe the indescribable. That's what keeps these stories alive. Not the monsters themselves, but the possibility of them. The idea that somewhere beneath miles of black water, something enormous might be moving, and we'd never know. So if you enjoyed this descent into the deep, and you want more stories like this, more mysteries, more legends, more secrets from the dark, go ahead and like the video and hit that subscribe button. Come hang out with me next time we poke at something humanity still hasn't figured out.